Imagine this, a convent in 17th century France. Rows of nuns kneeling in prayer. Then suddenly their bodies twist, their voices deepen into something inhuman, and they begin to shriek obscenities. Crowds gather to watch them as priests attempt exorcisms, while the women claim a local priest bound them to Satan himself. Now, this isn't a horror movie. This is the Loudun possessions, a scandal that ended in one priest being burned at the stake and a town convinced that it had become the devil's playground. The year is 1632 in a small French town called Loudun. France was deeply Catholic at the time, and being deeply Catholic, they are deeply superstitious. The devil wasn't just an idea. He was believed to be an active presence in daily life. Across Europe, witch trials and exorcisms drew crowds, and accusations of sorcery could ruin reputations and, at worst, cost lives. Adding to the tension, France's powerful minister, Cardinal Richelieu, I apologize if I mispronounced that. He wanted to bring fortified towns like Loudun under tighter control. Politics, religion, and paranoia made the perfect storm. At the center of it all was Jeanne d'Agnes, a prioress of the Ursuline Convent. She was ambitious, highly devout, and by some accounts, deeply troubled. One night, she claimed to see a shadowy figure in her room in the form of Father Urbain Grandier, a local priest she accused of sending demons to torture her. Not long after that, other nuns began to show the same symptoms. They convulsed, they screamed, and they claimed invisible spirits were tormenting them. What began with one nun's visions quickly infected the entire convent. But who was this priest, Urbain Grandier? Grandier was a well-educated, eloquent, and charismatic priest. Some also felt he was also arrogant, and he had grown many enemies at the time. Rumors claimed he seduced women in the town, earning him the resentment of husbands and scorn of fellow clergy. When the nuns accused him of witchcraft, those enemies saw a chance to destroy him once and for all. The convent soon became a scene of horror. Witnesses reported the nuns writhing on the ground in violent fits, their limbs stiff one moment and grotesquely flexible the next. Nicholas Urbain, a Protestant minister who observed the events, described it as such. They fell upon the ground with their bodies twisted and their bellies swollen, as if that had been with child. Their limbs were so stiff that one could not bend them, and at other times so supple they seemed disjointed. During exorcisms, the nuns shouted blasphemies and made obscene gestures. Urbain noted, they uttered things so scandalous and immodest that the most debauched of men would blush to hear them. Sometimes their strength seemed unnatural. Urbain wrote, several men together could scarce hold them, though they were but young women of small strength. And perhaps the most chilling detail of all was how their voices changed. He wrote, at times their voices seemed so deep and hollow that they seemed not to be the voices of women, but of devils themselves. What should have been a quiet convent was now a public stage. Word spread quickly, and soon Loudun was overrun with spectators. People traveled from miles away to witness the nuns' torments. Exorcisms were performed in public, sometimes in the town square, turning the possessions into theater. The exorcisms were rather a stage play than a remedy, the possessed acting their parts before an audience who paid dear for their entertainment. The more attention the nuns received, the more dramatic their performances seemed to become. And then attention turned to Grandier. He was arrested and accused of witchcraft. The Crown's investigators produced shocking evidence, a supposed contract with Satan. The parchment, written in Latin, promised Grandier wealth, women, and power in exchange for his soul. It even bore bizarre signatures said to be from demons like Leviathan, Beelzebub, and even Lucifer himself. Of course, it was almost certainly a forgery. But in the fevered atmospheres of Loudun, it had carried weight. Grandier was tortured mercilessly. His legs were crushed in a device of iron wedges and wooden boards. Yet, even under torment, he refused to confess, proclaiming his innocence until the very end. And then in 1634, Urbain Grandier was sentenced to death. He was paraded through the streets of Loudun and tied to a stake. Witnesses said he prayed calmly, forgiving his enemies, and never admitted guilt. When the fire was lit, he endured the flames in silence until he was consumed. Crowd believed they had seen a sorcerer destroyed. However, the story didn't end there. Even after Grandier's execution, the possessions continued. The nuns convulsed, screamed, and performed their public spectacles for years. So what really happened? Some argue that it was mass hysteria, a psychological contagion in the cloistered convent environment. Others say it was a calculated political conspiracy, which Richelieu exploiting the scandal to eliminate a troublesome priest and tighten royal control over Loudun. Still, others see it as a case of jealousy and revenge. Grandier's arrogance and rumored affairs catching up to him in the worst way possible. Whatever the cause, people of Loudun were convinced they had witnessed the hand of the devil. Now, this story ended up inspiring numerous books, films, and other literature. In 1952, Aldous Huxley wrote The Devils of Loudun, analyzing the case through psychology, politics, and faith. In 1971, director Ken Russell adapted it into the controversial film The Devils, infamous for its shocking imagery of possession and exorcism. To this day, this case fascinates as much as it horrifies. A collision of belief, hysteria, and power that destroyed lives and left a dark mark on history. So I want to leave you with my personal thoughts on this. So, one thing that I kept finding when I was studying this and researching this was this obsession almost with the priest Urbain Grandier. One of the nuns said that one of the nuns seemed to be obsessed with him in a very sexual way. And many think that she was the star of it all. She desired his attention, and when he didn't receive it, she went for more and more drastic measures, which started the whole mass hysteria thing, which caused the nuns to start to freak out. And I don't know, it seems to me like it was probably highly sensationalized, not nearly as bad as it is described. But some of the things that priest Nicholas Urbain, sorry if I keep mispronouncing that, but the things that he described seeing were just chilling, just the way, just imagining them just writhing on the ground. I couldn't find the quote anywhere, but I remember reading something about their heads being like thrown up and down, really, really fast, way harder and faster than possible. It would have killed any normal person, snapped their necks, but I don't know. It's just a fascinating story from history, I think. So, and I generally don't believe most possession stories. I think most historical possession stories are misidentified cases of mental or physical disability like Tourette's or schizophrenia or something. But even if 1% of possession stories are real, that's enough to send shivers down my spine. Anyway, what do you guys think? Leave a comment down below. Remember to like and subscribe. I love hearing your guys' feedback and seeing your guys' stories and what you guys want me to cover next. So, again, what do you think? Were the nuns truly possessed by demons? Was Urbain Grandier guilty of sorcery or just a scapegoat caught between lust, jealousy, and political intrigue? Nicholas Aubin left us with his skeptical but chilling testimonies, and centuries later, the screams of Loudun's nuns still echo in our imagination. And so, maybe that's the scariest part of it all. Whether the demons real or not, the people of Loudun believed that they were. And belief alone was enough to burn a man alive. And as always, stay spooky, friends.